वेलकम दोस्तों, आप सुन रहे हैं हेलो वैष्णवी शो विद योर होस्ट वैष्णवी, जहां बातें होती हैं अनलिमिटेड, राइट गाइस? And you are listening to Radio Nyra at 99.9 FM HD4, 101.9 FM and 1490 AM पर. And you know what? अब तक तो आपने सोशल मीडिया पे देखा ही होगा what's going on in my show today. So we have very amazing people here. That's Rishi Oza and Kelsey Berger. Welcome to the show from Brown Immigration Law. Welcome to the show, Rishi and Kelsey.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Well, so today we are going to talk about, H1B visas. That's the topic, and that's, how we're going to start our podcast series from now. And the first ever episode with Brown Immigration Law is here. That's we are talking about H1B visas. Before we get started, I want you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Kelsey, you want to go first?
Partners first.
All right. So my name is Rishi Oza. I am a partner here at Brown Immigration Law. I have been practicing immigration law for 20 years now, and I run our office here in Raleigh-Durham. And the only focus of our firm's practice is immigration. We don't do family law, we don't do contracts, we don't do anything else. If it's immigration law related, we've done it before, and we have really great, fantastic people that work with us, including Kelsey, that have handled all different kinds of cases. So that's a little bit about me.
I'm Kelsey Berger. I am an associate attorney at Brown Immigration Law. I've been practicing now for almost 3 years, so not quite the 20 years, but working on it. And like Rishi said, I handle employment, family, and humanitarian removal cases. And really my goal is to help clients find, the individualized and best strategic case for them and pathway for them.
Wonderful. So now I know, and we know that Brown Immigration exclusive for immigration related.
That's right.
Right? Yeah, that's wonderful. So now we are talking about H1B visa. So first, what is H1B visa, and who is eligible to apply?
So an H1B visa is the standard work visa for professionals. So if you have a job that requires at least a bachelor's degree to do, then an H1B visa is a good visa for you. Anyone can apply, so it's not limited to only certain people from certain countries. Anyone can apply, but generally speaking, it's a lot easier to get an H1B if you're already in the United States. If you're outside the United States, they're just more expensive to apply for. But as a fundamental kind of concept, an H1B is a visa for people that have professional level jobs.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, this is a live show, so definitely you can call us at 919-999-8595, and whatever questions you have, regarding H1B visas, you have, people ready here to answer you. So you can call us at 919-999-8595. Well, we are talking about, H1B visa. So tell us, why is H1B visa is so important for Indian professionals who are living in US?
So the H1B visa really allows Indian professionals, Indians specifically, to stay in the United States for a longer period of time. Mm-hmm. A lot of Indian citizens, and a lot of our listeners might already know this, have a long road ahead in terms of applying for a green card and being able to get a green card. The nice thing about an H1B is it's a work visa. You're allowed to stay here. You're allowed to work. In certain circumstances, your spouse can work. And they're somewhat flexible in terms of what you're allowed to do. You can move them from company to company. So if you have a better job offer somewhere else, you can move your visa to somewhere else. So they're really good in terms of being long, stable visas that allow you to stay here for a long period of time.
What's the key criteria for H1B visas?
The main thing is that we want to make sure that you have at least a bachelor's degree or the foreign equivalent. And it's in a specialized occupation, and we want to make sure that that degree is relevant to whatever the position is. So we want to make sure that the bachelor's degree is for not too broad, so not like business, but more so like a architecture or something else very specific.
It's hard to use a really broad degree to get a specific job, right? So if someone has say for example, you have a bachelor's in chemistry, it's hard to use that to get a job as a software developer, right? And so your degree has to connect to the kind of job that you're doing. Simply having a bachelor's degree by itself isn't enough. You have to have a job that connects or is related to the kind of degree that you have.
Okay. And so when we talk about H1B visas, it's always like it's a lottery system.
Yeah.
Right. So how does that system works? H1B lottery system works.
So the lottery essentially works. So sometimes you need the lottery and sometimes you don't. Right? So there's two types of H1Bs. There's what's called cap H1Bs that has the lottery, and there's uncapped H1B or non-cap. The lottery system essentially says that immigration can only give out certain number of H1B visas per year. They can only give out 85,000. And so to get one of those 85,000 visas, your company has to register you in a lottery because every year there's 250 or 300,000 people that want one of those slots. So in the month of March, every year, immigration opens up an online portal where your company goes in and they register you for a potential visa slot. And it's kind of like they're buying you a lottery ticket. Now, the way that lottery works is that the more you get paid, the better your chance of getting selected. So they have what's called wage levels. A level 1 wage is your entry-level worker, your lowest paid worker. And it goes all the way up to level 4. If you're a level 4 worker, you get kind of 4 ping pong balls in that lottery. If you're level 3, you only get 3. If you get 2, you get 2. You get 1, you get 1. So the lottery is favored towards people that get higher paying jobs. And then towards the beginning of April, immigration will actually run the lottery, and you'll just figure out who got selected and who didn't. And then the people that get selected, then they go out and construct their H1B applications, which is what Kelsey and I are doing now. And all of those have to be filed with the Immigration Service no later than June 30th.
Okay, so it's like for people who are applying, and they don't get select, say they don't, select in first lottery. So is there any limitation you see, to apply for H1B? Do you see that limitation, you failed once, you didn't get select, and then, so how many times, or what are the attempt number, we can look for H1B visas? Is it like never give up or?
Keep trying. I mean, I had a client this year. This is her 4th year of applying.
Okay.
And she got selected this year. She hadn't gotten selected any of the past 3 years, but this year she got selected. So there is a genuine kind of benefit to keep trying. Obviously, that requires her to be able to stay in the United States and have another kind of status or something like that. But the one thing you want to avoid is one employer cannot file multiple applications for the same person. So they don't let you do that. Once you're registered once, you can have 10 different employers register you, but you only get kind of one lottery ticket in.
Okay. I mean, do you understand, one employer should apply for H1B?
Correct.
One person is eligible to get submission for just for one employer, not like multiple employers can do that?
Multiple employers, so you can have 5 employers.
Okay.
All of them can register you in the lottery.
Okay.
But you don't get 5 lottery tickets. You still only get one lottery ticket.
Oh, okay. Out of 5, it's again a luck.
It's still kind of based on luck, but your chances go up if you have a higher paying job. Okay. So if employer 1, 2, 3, and 4 register you with a level 1 wage, which is the lowest level, and employer number 5 registers you with a level 4 wage, that's going to be your best chance of selection. Okay. If that makes sense. I know it's a little bit complicated, but the government doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't make it easy for us to be able to explain it, and this is the first year they're doing it.
And is it every time they need to pay the fee and they need to submit the application? Right?
So the registration fee is actually it's $215. Okay. So it's not very expensive to do the registration as opposed to the actual application. If you get selected, that's a couple $1,000s. It's about $3,000, $3,500. So it's more expensive if you get selected, but obviously you get the visa.
Okay, and let's say if a person got selected in a lottery, but still we see that they don't get visa. They have rejection. When we talk about rejection, what's the thing why H1B visas they get rejected even though they are selected in the lottery? They got selected from there.
Well, I mean, simply because you got selected doesn't automatically mean you're going to get your visa approved. Your company still has to prove that your job is a specialty occupation, like Kelsey mentioned. So they still have to prove that you have the kind of job that requires a degree. That's a complex job, that's specialized. And sometimes employers don't do a very good job of proving that. So getting selected in the lottery is the first step. The second step is really where the work is, insofar as we now have to construct a kind of explanation to the Immigration Service as to why someone's job is complicated. And it just takes evidence. It's not, I tell clients every day, it's not what we say, it's what we can prove. And if we say that your job is complicated, great, I can say anything I want. I have to prove that your job is complicated. Now, some jobs are easier to prove, like if you're a physician, I don't have to prove that your job is complicated, it's kind of obvious. But a software developer, the Immigration Service is going to question, do you actually have to have a degree to be a software developer? Because some of these skills are easier to get without a degree now, so it does take some work in terms of being able to prove it.
So you say it's all about the portfolio as well, what the
Yeah.
person is having, what kind of skill set do a person who is applying for an application, like the H1B. So how important is employer when we talk about H1B visas? What's the what do we call the bracket of employees or the company reputation? So how important is employer?
I mean, the employer is, if they have the job, that with the specialty occupation, and they can sometimes work with us to make sure that it's as specialized and, as close to that degree as possible, that's what's really important. And I think it kind of goes back to what Rishi says, just to avoid issues down the line. And once the case has been submitted, you just want to make sure that everything, is specialized and easy for immigration to understand.
And that said, the Immigration Service doesn't penalize you if you're a small employer.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not as if only Google and only IBM and only Apple are the only ones getting H1Bs. But what an employer is required to do is prove that this is actually a specialized job. We've worked with employers with one employee and gotten them an H1B.
Okay.
So it's doable, but again, it comes through in terms of what's the evidence that we have to show that this job requires a degree. If we can show that, it can be a small employer, it can be a huge employer, it doesn't matter.
Right. And do you want to share any case where a person got selected in lottery but they got rejection in visa interviews, and what kind of challenges as an immigration law firm you faced handling that type of case where they got rejection at H1B?
I'll go so far as to say we don't get too many denial notices with the actual H1B application. I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back, but we put a lot of work into making sure that doesn't happen.
Okay.
Getting selected is a game of chance, and getting an H1B selection it's like holding a golden ticket, and that's not something that we want to just kind of be kind of casual with. Now, when somebody applies for a visa at the consulate, that's an entirely different kind of challenge, because they're at the mercy of an immigration officer in Mumbai or Delhi or Kolkata or wherever they're going to go. And a lot of those immigration officers are looking for, tell us about the nature of your job. Is this job a specialty occupation? And about somebody's background, right? Like if somebody has a crime in their background, if somebody worked without authorization while they were in school, if they've worked at a place that has a reputation for having, problems or fraud or something like that, those are all things that the consulate's looking for. So the consulate's looking at it more from a security perspective of, has this particular individual committed any kind of violations?
Okay.
And that could slow things down.
Right.
And sometimes it's just
So you also
have any
do the
explanation.
due diligence for the applications which you get, or they need to give you the true facts if they apply?
When our clients are applying, we're relying on them for all the facts in order to put their case together and in order to prep them, especially if they're going to go abroad to a consulate for a visa interview. We're completely relying on them. We can work with what they have and prepare them and say, these are the types of questions, this is what the officer is going to be looking for, this is how you can present your background, immigration, criminal, and make sure that they present their job really well. But aside from that, what is in their history, what's in their background, we have no control over.
Yeah, we rely on our clients to give us information, right? And so to a certain
that's
point,
very
there's a limit as to how much we can possibly go and investigate every single person. If you just don't tell us something, then there's not really a way for us to figure it out. And don't lie to your doctor, don't lie to your lawyer.
I was
don't lie
about
to your
to say
priest.
this.
Yeah, exactly, right?
We can't help you if we don't know.
Yeah,
We can help
exactly.
you with.
Our job is to help, and we can't help somebody if they're not going to tell us something or if they're going to withhold something from us. It doesn't really help. We're there to help, not to hurt them.
Right. So say now a person got H1B.
Yeah.
But then what happens if someone loses their job while they're on H1B visa?
I mean, they wouldn't be the first or the last person to lose their job. Unfortunately, they have a 60-day grace period, so they're able to either switch employers or perhaps they're done with the H1B and they want to switch to a different status or go down a different route. And that's when you look at all the options and potential avenues for relief. Right after you find out you've lost your job.
I talked to a client yesterday that got laid off, and they applied to change to a visitor. And they'd been here for, I think, 12 years, 13 years on H1B.
Okay.
Companies downsizing, and they got laid off. So they had 60 days, like Kelsey mentioned, to try to find another job. And in that 60 days, if they can't find anything, they could try to switch to something else. Like being a visitor, hey, I own a home. What am I going to do with it? I got to figure out how to sell it. Or what am I going to do with my kids' education? Or I have a car, or I have all these, I have bank accounts, and I have all these things I need to figure out.
Right.
And for someone who's been in the United States for 12, 13, 15, 20 years, 2 months of time is not a lot of time to figure all those kind of complex life decisions out. So you can always try to change somebody to something else.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's a lot of risk, or because 60 days, I don't think that's something.
Not a lot of time.
It's like the days just go, and it's very difficult for them to survive. So, how do you see those cases? Eventually, do they really get into something, or is it like we see a worst situation for them?
A lot of times people find other jobs. Yeah, so they're able to find another job. So this client that I spoke to yesterday, it was a husband and wife, and the husband found another job.
Oh.
So in that 60 days, he had found another job. He had filed for his change of status. So it ends up working out. But it's, different cases. It just depends on kind of what field you're in. Like, I know right now tech is having a lot of, it's a tight market in the tech market. Healthcare is hiring right now. So it really depends on what kind of background that you have.
Okay, when we talk about the industry, right? When we talk now, you said tech is hiring more, but also we see that because of AI, a lot of people are losing their jobs as well.
Yeah.
So, do you see a file where they are into a very good skill set, having a good skill set, and they work for MNCs, and and then still they don't get the job here? So, do you have I wouldn't say advice, but what often do you see that this industry is, a very good industry and people are definitely getting job and they don't face a kind of issues with the company? So tech is, yes, obvious that people need software engineers here, but how about other industries, if you want to put some insights on those?
I mean, the healthcare industry, there's always a shortage. So, healthcare is always great. I think that'll forever be a good area.
Mm-hmm.
You can't automate, helping cure somebody from an illness.
Right.
I think the tech sector right now is having layoffs because you can automate coding. You can automate some of these jobs that 10 years ago or 15 years ago we didn't think were possible. And so now, tech is kind of, it's kind of narrowing in terms of how easy it is to get a job. So, it's interesting because one of the fields that I know I've talked to some of the other folks at our firm about is not H1B related, are trades, plumbers, mechanics. I mean, those kind of jobs are actually paying quite a bit. They're not great for H1Bs because you don't have to have a bachelor's degree to be a plumber, but you can't get a robot to come and fix a leaky pipe. You can't get a robot to go and change the carburetor on your car. I don't even know how to do that. So, to a certain extent, I think a lot of the jobs that are going to be insulated from AI are going to be things that you have to use your hands for, that you actually need manual labor and you need skills for. Hopefully AI is not coming for lawyers anytime soon, or radio hosts.
Absolutely, yeah. And what you said is, yes, I do agree, because I recently saw there is a shift in learning courses as well. So people are actually learning those jobs.
Mhm.
They are teaching, the jobs which cannot be replaced by AI,
Yeah.
like the plumber, electrician, or whatever. So actually they're getting trained.
And they're
Well,
paying really well.
We
That's
see
the
that
other thing,
shift
yeah.
is happening. So their job is secured in that way, right?
Very much so.
Yeah. Well, we spoke about H1B and job loss, and if they have, the lottery system. So, how brown immigration also helps in preparing, H1B visa interviews. What kind of the most common H1B interview questions do you see should be taken care of?
Yeah, I think like any other interview at the consulate, the consular officer wants to know, number one, like Rishi had mentioned earlier, what is their background? What's their education? What is their experience and what are their qualifications for this very specific job? Do they have any criminal background? What is the recency and the severity of any criminal background? But really, they're going to want to understand what is their job position, how do they qualify, and they're looking for that applicant to be able to explain that very succinctly.
And what should they prepare for visa interviews? Because when we browse about the questions or anything, there is a vast data which is available that you might be asked, but importantly they forget that okay, these are the important things or subject lines which they need to focus before even they go and give the visa interview.
I think people just need to be reminded that a consular officer probably interviews 50 people a day, 70 people a day. They're not going to spend half an hour, 45 minutes with somebody. Right. So what are the obvious things that a consular officer wants to know? What kind of a company is this? What do you do specifically for this company? What's your, like Kelsey was saying, what's your educational background? How do you qualify for this job? Right? If someone can't just kind of rattle those things off relatively quickly as if they know them, then they should expect some scrutiny from a consular officer. But a consular officer is going to have to move through these applications very, very quickly. So to a certain point, they're looking at, does an applicant that's sitting in front of me, and I have 3 or 5 minutes maybe to make a decision on an application. Does this person know what they do? Do they know what the company does? Do they know what their role is going to be at this company? And how do they qualify? Tell me about your educational background. What kind of experience do you have doing this kind of work? And if an applicant can't explain that, then they're going to have some scrutiny on their application that might be delayed.
Okay. And what mistakes they should not, they should avoid doing mistakes in visa interviews?
Well, I can think of one off the top of my head, which is, not being transparent and honest with some information, not disclosing, for example, a prior immigration violation, like working when they were a student in the past. If they didn't disclose that on the visa application and now all of a sudden it's coming up because the officer knows more information about the background or the applicant says it verbally, that's going to be an error.
And I usually say, answer the question that you're asked.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have the desire, and consular officers are trained to do this, to let there be awkward pauses. Right. If you get asked a yes or no question, just answer it yes or no. Mm-hmm. If they want you to explain something, then you can explain it. A lot of people just have a nervous anxiety to just talk and fill up an uncomfortable silence is uncomfortable. If they can avoid that, avoid just talking unnecessarily. Usually if they're going to ask you a yes or no question, it's okay to answer yes or no. Be pleasant, look somebody in the eye, but you don't have to just talk just for the sake of talking.
Wonderful. So this is a good tip.
Yeah. And that works when you're coming in at the airport as well, right? Like it's a yes no question, just answer it yes or no. That's fine. You can talk about the weather or a sports team or something like that. But if they're not going to ask you about everything under the sun, you don't have to volunteer all the information about your life.
Right. I think with that too, it's how you're presenting information coming out of your mouth. It also is about how are you presenting yourself physically. So, if you're really serious about getting this visa, pursuing, a career, a life in the United States, don't show up in a bathing suit or sweatpants, a tracksuit. Yeah. We tell our clients no flip-flops, no baseball caps, nothing overly casual. Dress for the job that you want. You want to be in business casual. This shows the officer that you're serious and that also you respect them and their time and what they're doing for you.
Wow, wonderful. So Rishi, what is an RFE and how can applicant handle it?
An RFE is a request for evidence. So when you file an H1B application, or quite frankly any kind of application, immigration may have questions.
Right.
And they might say, we want more information about X. So I actually just have an H1B application that I filed about 2 weeks ago. We got a request for evidence, we got an RFE 2 days ago. And they said, we want more information about what you do on a day-to-day basis, right? We want to know what percentage of time you're spending on this job duty, on that job duty. We want to know this because we're trying to determine, does this job require a bachelor's degree? This particular individual is a general manager of a nonprofit. And so she spends a lot of her time fundraising and overseeing the work of other individuals and managing volunteers and things like that. So the Immigration Service is rightfully wondering, does your job require a degree? Or can you do this without a degree?
Okay.
And so they've sent us a request for evidence. It's, I don't know, probably about 10 pages. They're saying, provide us with more information about the complexity of your job. What do you do on a day-to-day basis? How much time are you spending on administrative tasks like filing papers and things like that versus things that are maybe more complicated and require more of your attention, like financial decisions and things like that. So they just want some more information about that. And sometimes, you know, you get an RFE for stuff that you've already submitted.
Okay.
A lot of times you get RFEs for stuff that you've already submitted, and that's just part of the dance of doing an H1B. Is, you know, your attorney is charged with being able to explain the complexity of your job as many different ways as we can to the Immigration Service to get you approved, and that's just the challenge of our job.
Yeah, that's the challenge, you would say, or that's the expertise.
Yeah, right. That's kind of the expertise of our job, is to know, hey, I need some more information about this, and we're going to rely on the applicant and the employer. H1Bs are employer-driven visas.
Right.
They're not an actual employee's application. That's something that people forget, is that it's actually the employer's application that they're filing on behalf of their employee.
Okay.
So a lawyer represents the company, not the employee in the context of an H1B. Now, 99.9% of the time, the employer and the employee have the same interest at heart. But sometimes you have a situation where an employee is being laid off, and an employer's going. I had that happen today. That an employer's going through downsizing, and you know we have an H1B application pending, and they're asking me, hey, what should we do? And part of me feels bad for this employee because they're going to lose their job. But my responsibility is to the employer and say, hey, here's the legal advice I'm giving you in terms of what your responsibilities are, you know, how this affects the company, and so on and so forth. So it is an employer-driven visa, but 99 times out of 100, the employer wants to do the right thing for the employee.
Right. So Rishi, what are the biggest, the big risks we see in H1B visa today?
So I'm not sure if there's risks, but there are challenges. And the biggest challenge is just, you know, the challenge of getting selected in the lottery, which is just a game of chance. And the other one is the newly enacted $100,000 application fee for people that are outside the United States. If you're in the United States on an F1 visa, on an L1, on another kind of visa, you can change into being an H1B visa holder. If you are outside the United States and you're not here, then your employer is going to have to pay an extra $100,000 for you to get here. And that's a challenge because, quite frankly, if someone's job is going to pay them $120,000, an employer is probably going to have second thoughts about whether or not their job is now going to cost $220,000. And so, you know, this administration is essentially trying to encourage employers to hire U.S. workers. But fundamentally, you know, our economy needs foreign workers. We need talent. And, you know, the people that come here on F1 visas that get PhDs in chemistry and engineering and science and all these other kind of things that don't get H1Bs and don't get other kind of work visas in the United States, they go out into the world and they end up competing against us. So, I mean, in my opinion, I understand the desire we want to have U.S. workers that are able to get jobs and are able to kind of have good lives for their families. But, you know, H1B workers are really, really valuable in the context of people come here, they are innovative, and they end up being small business owners, and they open radio stations and do all different kinds of things. And, you know, they open law firms. And, you know, my dad is an immigrant and opened an engineering firm. Okay. And so to the extent that people come here with the desire, it takes a certain amount of courage to move to another country.
Correct.
And that kind of spirit bleeds into your work and your willingness to take chances and risks, and that's what built the country. So I don't know if the answer to the question that you
Yeah.
had, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's risks associated with H1Bs, but they're certainly challenging sometimes.
Yeah, I mean there was a kind of panic, situation I think in 2025 where it was like whoever is traveling from India or any
Yeah.
other country to US, they need to travel quickly from. I think it was Jan 30 before
It was like
Jan
December or
31st, something
January,
like that.
something like that,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then they who came here like they were afraid to go back.
Yeah.
For some reason, if they want to go back, like say after 6 months or 3 months, so what are the chances for them? Today if we are talking about people who have H1B visa and they want to travel back to India and they want to come back. So are they going to face any kind of issues, or who are staying in India for longer than they used to be? They should be, like for more than 6 months. For them to come back to US on the same visa, what kind of challenges are they going to face it?
Right. Well, first of all, you need to make sure the visa is valid. That way they can apply, to come back in. So, some folks, they forget that their visa, is coming to an end, and then, or something happens while they're abroad, they have to stay longer. So just making sure that the visa, is valid. Rishi and I spoke to someone today who is interested in getting married, and, that's okay. It's actually, the H1B is a dual intent, so it's a little bit less riskier than some of the other visas, that require that applicant to not have a permanent intent to remain in the United States. So the H1B is a little bit nicer, in that regard. It's a little bit more forgiving.
The big challenge that you mentioned in December of 2025,
Yeah.
without any notice to anybody, the consulate just started canceling visa interviews. And they said, we're not going to interview anybody for 3 weeks. And the big thing that I see with my clients is they just have a hard time getting an appointment.
Right.
That I want to go home and see my parents or my family, but I can't get an appointment until August of next year. And unfortunately, there's no other place you can go to get a visa, right? Like, I tell clients, if you don't like the food at McDonald's, you can go to Burger King or Wendy's or somewhere else. There's nowhere else you can go to get a visa.
Right.
And the consulate, the Department of State, what used to happen before the current administration was that, well, if you couldn't find an interview slot in Delhi or Mumbai, you could go to Toronto, you could go to Calgary, you can go to Vancouver, you can go to Mexico City if you can get a slot there. Now, if you're a citizen of India, you can only go to India to get an appointment.
Yes.
And what happens, you have these countries with a gigantic population in the United States, like India, and there's 8 consulates in India? They only have so many people that work there. There's only so many hours in the day, so what does it create? It creates this gigantic backlog of you can't get appointments. French people don't have that problem. Swedish people don't have that problem because they don't have huge populations here, and on top of that, people from India are here on H1Bs for years and years and years and years, right? Like, I have clients that have been on H1B for 12, 13, 15 years because it takes them that long to get a green card. Well, if that person wants to go back and get an appointment, they're competing against all the other people in the last 15 years that also have H1Bs just to get a slot. So most people don't have particularly complicated H1B applications. They can go to an interview, they've done it before. The biggest problem is just booking an appointment because there's only so many appointments that are available.
Right, absolutely. So can H1B visa holders bring their families to the US? Is there any issues right now going on, or maybe what do you see, like the cases? Did you see any case where people are it's getting difficult for them to get their families?
Right. Well, with H1Bs, you can bring over your spouse or your children, but your children have to be under 21 to qualify for that dependent status and that dependent visa. And so sometimes, children, like Rishi was saying, they're on H1B for such a long time because they're waiting for a green card, and then children turn 21, they become adults. And, at that point, we have to find other solutions for the children. But absolutely, folks can bring over their spouse and their children.
Same problem again, getting an appointment.
Right.
I talked to a guy yesterday who just got married, and he's excited, and he wants to bring over his wife, his brand new bride, and he said, I can't get an appointment until like 2027. What do I do? And I said, well, there's no magic answer to that. Like, I'm sorry, you're going to have 8 months and he has to come back right away because obviously he has to work.
Yeah.
His employer's not going to let him work in India for the next 8 months. They want him back here. So that's, it's just a practical problem that there's not a legal solution to, that you can't get an appointment.
Right. Have you seen a case where, husband and wife, they went for visa in India and then they got the visa and, he travels to US and then his wife is in India and they got a baby there in India. So now these two people have visas. How about the kid? They can't bring kid along with them, right? If he's
Kid
staying
needs a
here and so it's like they can't get it. Even it's the same process for them too.
Same process. Baby needs a visa. So, yeah.
Right. Right.
I would have told that couple, as imperfect as it is, have that baby in the United States, and that way you don't have to worry about it. Baby's a U.S. citizen, and then it's easy to travel. But I understand that people want to have their kids where their families are, and they want to have a support network and things like that.
Right. So, what are the options for H1B visa holders to get a green card?
Sure. So green cards, generally speaking, there's two basic ways of getting a green card. There's work and there's family. Right, so on the family side, if you're married to a U.S. citizen, if your parents are U.S. citizens or green card holders, if your brother and sister, one of those people can sponsor. If your kids are 21 years old, you can get sponsored by that on the family side. If you don't have family in the United States, then you're looking at a employment-based route. And on the employment side, there's really two routes. There's one you can self-sponsor, or the majority of people are going to be sponsored by their employer. And the employer process is really 3 steps. An employer has to prove before we can sponsor any foreign worker, we can't find a U.S. worker. It's called a PERM or a labor certification. Once they do that, they provide a formal job offer to a foreign national for a job. That's called your immigrant visa. And then the third step is the conversion, the adjustment of status that converts you into being a green card holder. Now that process for Indian citizens routinely takes 12, 13 years to get done. Because there's just tremendous backlog. And the rules for this were written in the 1990s. And so back then, Congress said, well, we don't want to give out green cards. We only want to give out so many green cards per year. And one country can't get any more than 7% of those green cards. Now, that wasn't really a problem in the 90s. That problem has gotten worse and worse and worse. It's created a backlog. So India has a backlog. China has a backlog because they're 2 gigantic countries. So getting a green card typically is employer driven. You can self-sponsor, but you have to prove you're either extraordinary or it's in the national interest to give you a green card, which are pretty high standards.
So is it easy to transfer H1B visa from one employer to another employer? Is it an easy process?
Yeah, I mean, as long as that other employer and the position that they're going to be moving to, everything still qualifies, then absolutely, they can move from one employer to the other.
Do it all the time.
What are the chances for student or OPT students?
So students are going to be in the lottery, right? So that same lottery system that we talked about earlier, that in March you have to be registered in the lottery, and if their name gets selected, then they can get an H1B visa. The challenge you have as students is, remember, there's that level 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 gets the best chance of being selected. Level 1 gets the least chance of being selected. Most students are level 1s or level 2s, right? They don't have 10, 15 years of experience, right? The 10 or 15 year experience folks are level 3 and level 4 workers. A student's probably going to be a level 1 or level 2. So it's a double-edged sword in that regard, that you're in the United States, which makes it easier. You don't have to pay the $100,000 fee. But on the flip side, you're not a level 3 or 4 worker, you're a level 1 worker, which means you get maybe a little bit of less of a chance of getting selected. It's imperfect, but that's the system that we have.
Wow, I think you answered a lot of questions, and there's still a list.
Just we can
go
talk about
on
this
and
all
on.
day. Yeah, exactly.
Well, listeners, you are listening to RadioNyra 99.9 FM HD4, 101.9 FM and 1490 AM, and this is Hello Vaishnavi show with your host Vaishnavi, and you can call us at 919-999-8595. We have Rishi and Kelsey from Brown Immigration Law Firm. Well, while we wait for calls, now it's time. We spoke a lot, and I was like, I think I asked you like more than 20 questions.
Yeah.
So let's do a rapid fire, kind of fun, but yeah, it's not fun.
Sure, let's do it.
Well, so let's go. Like 3, 2, 1.
Let's go.
All right.
We'll go back and forth.
Well, yeah. So the first question: does H1B guarantee a green card?
Doesn't guarantee it, but it can be a nice pathway.
Can multiple employers file H1B for the same candidate?
Yes.
Is H1B lottery purely luck-based?
Yeah, for the most part, with some exceptions.
Purely luck based. The more you get paid, the better your chance of success in terms of getting selected. But it's not a completely blind lottery where they're just picking numbers out of a hat or something
Right.
like that.
Right, okay. And can H1B visa holders start a business in the US?
They can start one, they just can't work for them.
Unless you have a visa that allows you to work there.
Correct.
Can H1B spouses work in the US?
They cannot.
They cannot unless
Mm-hmm.
you've gotten through certain steps of the green card process. So the green
Oh.
card process is 3 steps.
Okay.
Once somebody's completed step 2, then at that point they can sponsor, their spouse is allowed to work. So ordinarily, like Kelsey said, the answer is no. If this is my first day as an H1B, my spouse cannot work. But if I've started my green card process, then at that point my spouse should be able to get a work permit.
Okay. What's the grace period after job loss on H1B?
60 days.
Yeah, that's a very short
Not
time.
very much.
Not a ton of time.
Can H1B be converted to another visa type?
Yeah.
Okay. What are they?
Every letter of the alphabet is a different kind of visa.
Mm-hmm.
So we can go through all the different alphabet letters. But yeah, sure. We have H1B visas that transfer to go back to school and go back to getting an F1 visa. You'll have H1Bs that end up being O1. They're extraordinary at some point in their career.
Okay.
Sometimes an H1B gets laid off and they just want to stay here and take care of their affairs. They can change to a V1. So yeah, you can absolutely change.
What's the minimum requirement, the salary requirement for H1B?
There's no minimum salary, but the salary is determined by the Department of State. So the Department of State puts out a table for essentially every job in the economy. Different jobs have different salaries, right? If you're a physician, you're going to have a different salary scale than someone who is a software developer.
Right.
Software developer is going to have a different salary scale than someone who's a nuclear scientist. Now, as a nuclear scientist, you're going to have an entry-level job. That's a level 1 wage. And you're going to have your most senior person, which is a level 4. So you're going to have variance within just one job position. And imagine doing that for every possible job, whether you're washing dishes or a painter or you're a neurosurgeon. They're all going to have that kind of variance.
Okay, I think we have a caller.
Sure.
Hello? Hello? Yes, this is RadioNyra. Of course, may I know your name?
Okay, Ravi, how can we help you? On L1 visas? So L1 visas are visas for people that are moving between branches of the same company. So the example I always give is if BMW or Mercedes-Benz wants to sponsor a engineer to come to the United States from Germany, they would sponsor that person on an L1 visa. They're moving from BMW Germany to BMW USA. Now, to get an L1 visa, there has to be a relationship between the US company and the foreign company. There has to be essentially the same entity has to have ownership of both of those companies. And the worker has to work outside the United States for at least one of the last 3 years before they can move to the United States. There's 2 types of L1 visas. There's L1As, which are for managers and executives, if you're coming to the United States to be a manager and executive, or an L1B, which is a specialized knowledge worker. If someone has some unique knowledge about a process or a product or some type of procedure that a company uses. So in the context of an auto engineer working for BMW, they're going to probably come here as an L1B because they're going to have a knowledge of how BMW builds an engine or the schematics of their cars or something like that. If BMW wants to bring over one of their executives, they're going to bring in as an L1A. L1As are valid for a total of 7 years. L1Bs are good for 5 years. And you can use L1s to transition into an H1B if you want to, or into a green card if your employer wants to sponsor you. So they're good visas, they're flexible visas, unlike an H1B, where an H1B is good for 6 years, but if you start the green card process, you can extend it beyond 6 years. L1 visas are hard cap. Once you get your 7 years as an L1A, you're done. Once you hit your 5 years of L1B, you're done. So oftentimes, I know I've done it this year, is I have a client who has one of their employees on an L1 visa. We're not going to have their green card done by the time they reach their 5th year, so we switched them into H1B. And then we're able to extend them. As a matter of fact, Kelsey and I were just working on somebody who's in that exact same category where we're extending their time out so they can continue to remain in the United States. I don't know if that answers. I'm sorry, could you ask again?
Is there a minimum wage limit?
There's no minimum wage for an L1. Unlike H1Bs have what's called a prevailing wage, which is a requirement that an employer has to pay you a specific wage. L1s don't have that. Now, whenever you're applying for an L1, an obvious thing that an immigration officer is going to look for is, you're telling me that you're an executive. How much you get paid? You're telling me that you're a specialized knowledge worker, that you have a knowledge that's unique compared to the other people that work in this company or other workers in the United States. If you're specialized, your wage should kind of reflect that. It's going to be hard for us to get an L1A or an L1B for someone making $10 an hour. Mm-hmm. So to a certain point, the application has to make sense that this is someone who is specialized. This is someone who's a manager and executive. The wage needs to kind of reflect the fact that you have those types of positions. Yeah, no, an L1 you can apply for it at any time. The H1B is limited, so there's only a certain number. They only give out 85,000 per year. L1s are not limited, so an L1 you can apply for it around 365 days a year at any time, as long as you meet those requirements of, before you apply, you have to have worked abroad for at least one out of the last 3 years. If you don't meet those requirements, then you just can't apply. Absolutely. So, and that happens actually quite often, is that someone will max out their L1A or L1B time. They'll go back to their foreign country, wherever they were working before, spend 1 year abroad. That resets their ability to come back to the United States for another 5 years, another 7 years. What I would suggest in that, if that were to be the case, is, if a company wants you here for 10 years, if they want you here for 14 years, at some point they should be applying for your green card. Mm-hmm. For really 2 reasons. One, you don't have to deal with visas and going to the consulate and getting a visa appointment and so on and so forth. And from the other reason of, it's just cheaper. L1 visas are expensive after a while, right? I mean, if you apply for a second, a third, or fourth L1 visa, unless you have a nephew who's an immigration attorney, you're paying a lot of money for these visas. So at some point, a green card just becomes a little bit more cost effective.
Wow.
Depends on your job. L1As that are executives or managers have a specific green card counterpart. It's called an Ep.1 that is kind of like the big brother of an L1A. So if you're an executive or a manager, there's a green card for executive or managers of multinational companies. If you're an L1B, it's kind of going to be the same process as if you're an H1B. You're going to go through that 3-step labor certification process.
Yes, spouse, and then any children under 21.
The one rub with the L1 compared to the H1B is that L2 spouses can work. Mm-hmm. H4 spouses cannot work. So there's a little bit of an upside of having an L visa, is that your spouse is going to be able to work in the United States. Unfortunately, kids can't. There's 2 ways in which to file. There's regular processing, which is probably 8 months, 9 months, I would say. And then there's premium processing, which is when you can pay the immigration service an extra filing fee, and they'll make a decision in 15 business days. So, and that's available for H1Bs, L1s, O1s, almost all of the work visas. You can do premium processing for. For premium processing, it's $2,965. It just went up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not cheap. Okay. My pleasure.
Of course.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you for calling. All right, I think we thought that we will do a podcast of 25 minutes. However, still we have a lot of questions, and I think again, we have different type of visas, and we're sure we need to discuss more about the category of visas which we have. So today we spoke about H1B, and you gave a lot of information, Rishi and Kelsey. Amazing. So do you want to share your contact information to our listeners so that they can reach out to you, and if they have any questions with regards to immigration?
Sure.
Yeah.
So our firm again is Brown Immigration Law. We have offices in Cleveland and Columbus, Ohio, here in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, as well as in Orlando and Tampa, Florida. We're not limited to just working in those particular areas. I know that one of my major clients is out in Arizona. We have clients probably in all 50 states and all around the world. Our website is www.brownimmlaw.com. So BROWN IMM, so the first three letters of immigration, and then law, LAW.com. And then our phone number here in Durham is 919-225-3963. And then if you go to our website, you can schedule appointments there. Right on the website, you can obviously call into our office if you want to. And yeah, we like I said at the very beginning, if it's immigration related, we do it. So we've seen every type of case under the sun. The gentleman that founded our firm was a previous director at the the INS back when it was INS. Bob Brown he worked in the government for I think 30 some years, and he gave us all jobs, and we worked hard to make sure that the practice runs the way it should. We take a lot of pride in meeting a standard. We're not interested in cutting corners or working on cases that aren't genuine, that don't have merit to them. And so we're going to put time and effort into making sure that our clients are getting the best result. What Bob told me years and years when I was a little baby attorney, that immigrants know other immigrants, and if you do a good job for one person, they're going to tell three of their friends, and their three friends are going to tell three of their friends, and then you go from there. And it's the way we built our office here. Is that I grew up here in North Carolina, and I went to UNC Chapel Hill, and so did Kelsey, and I wanted to come back here, and the only way of coming back here was find one client and do a really good job, and they'll tell their friends about the kind of work that we do, and we built it from there. And we've been in Carolina for 19, 20 years now. So
wow, amazing. You want to say something, Kelsey?
No, I mean, really just to add on to what Rishi said, we're all very passionate about what we do and helping our clients and helping them find sometimes really innovative solutions, especially if their current status is running out and they need to find another status to switch to. We've all got massive collective amount of wealth between all of us, so we love working with each other and bouncing ideas off each other for the benefit of our clients.
Thank you so much, Rishi and Kelsey. It was amazing to
having
have
us.
you here, and whatever you covered on H1B were amazing. Really appreciate it, your time and your efforts in answering all my questions. So definitely we're gonna come up with a lot of other podcasts with regards to different category of visas very soon. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for